morning. Thank you ever so much for such a delightfully warm welcome, Alex. It's an absolute pleasure for my colleagues and myself to be able to be here today and to share, as you just said, our presentation on what is definitely one of the most hot topics, not just in teacher education, but also in the wider sphere of education itself and, well, in every aspect and facet of society as we know it. So, as we say, we're going to be talking about ChatGPT, other what we've called fantastic beasts, and where to find them, particularly through the lens of its implications for teacher education. So we're going to start with a very brief introduction today. I mean, in this introduction, I'm probably going to be saying things a few things that you already know, but we think it's extremely important to be able to put the more practical information and the theoretical overview, which we'll be discussing subsequently, in its due context. So without any further ado, we also want to thank you this morning for joining us. We realize there are a range of parallel sessions available, and we're extremely privileged and humbled that you decided to join us today. So let's kick off with our introduction. Now, we are currently the 10th of June, and it seems like every single day, my Twitter, LinkedIn, the newspapers, everyone is talking about GenAI. And this has been the case for quite some time now. We've been witness to fundamental, game-changing developments almost on a weekly or monthly basis. So we're now, should we say, let's say 6 months into the year, but we still deem that we're still finding our feet within the field of teacher education when it comes to coming to terms with what is GenAI, what can it do, what can't it do, how can it help my pre-service teachers that I'm currently tutoring, what the pitfalls that I should address and be aware of. So in this kind of melee, in this explosion, amongst all this noise, from our personal experience, we feel that as teacher trainers, we are particularly well placed when it comes to not only determining the direction of travel at present and going forward in this particular field of GenAI and the wider sphere of education, but also in our ability to help pre-service teachers to become prepared for the future challenges that they will face when they are active teacher practitioners. Why is that? Well, let's just remember, large language models, which power many of the AI text generator tools, such as ChatGPT, are not a new phenomenon. The frantic media attention and the discussion is, of course. However, we, within this field and within the wider sphere of, let's say, English language teaching, are no strangers to challenges, perhaps, of this degree. What am I referring to? I'm talking about a far less mediatic predecessor, and that is machine translation. How many times in your particular context, wherever you may be, have you witnessed the beautiful sight of homework that has been handed in late or maybe even on time, but has been crafted by Google Translate 2.5 seconds before they came into class? You caught it, you knew exactly what you were doing. Now, the same with other tools that are akin. However, the challenge from GenAI is very much in the same vein, but a little bit different. So we're going to talk about now the main objectives of the session. We're firstly going to be looking at a brief theoretical review of the pertinent academic literature in this regard, and then we're going to go into the bit which we hope will be also of great use to you. It's eminently practical in our exploration of a different range of tools that you may or not be aware of, and perhaps the uses that can be given. Of course, whilst we're going through, we warmly invite you, I think you have a question and answer feature here for our session today. Please pop in any questions that you may have there, and we will leave time at the end to address these. So now let's move on to our theoretical review. When it came to the scientific literature, we decided that a landmark for us to start would, of course, be the launch of ChatGPT, shall we say, as we know it. So that's GPT 3.5. And we've been looking at studies that have been published from that date, so from last year, up until the time of presenting. As is to be expected, we're talking about an extremely limited scholarly landscape, of course. However, there are particular insights which we'd like to share that are of relevance today. So linking into my earlier comments about this not being a new phenomenon, although it being quite mediatic, there's an excellent study which we reference here on the slide that highlights it's a systematic review of different publications between the years of 2015 and 2021 that are actually addressing the specific AI implications for English language teaching and learning. We would be very much in recommending this because it's a great way of understanding of how we have got to the point we are at present. Furthermore, two further studies, so those published by Yeo and Johinka, they both underline, I think, concerns which many of us actually share within the sphere, and that's with regards to authorship. Did my student actually author the assignment that they've just handed into me, or is it actually more akin to teamwork between ChatGPT and the student, or is it, in the worst case scenario, 100% GenAI produced? So there are clear grave concerns which are now documented in scholarship for academic integrity, particularly with regards to L2 writing instruction. So we now move to the wider sphere of, should we say, pedagogy per se. It's very interesting to note there are a wide range of grassroots studies that are appearing from different academic subjects, particularly within the field of higher education. So we talk about EMI and teacher education. I know many of you will form part of such wider contexts. It's very interesting to note that we have a range of studies emerging from different disciplines, be that business, accounting, medicine, social work, etc. The list goes on. And when we actually take into account a comparative analysis of the findings of these studies, it's really interesting to note that each target domain presents its own needs and challenges when it comes to tackling this issue of Gen AI within education. Furthermore, that highlights the key, what should we say, potential flaw or obstacle for us to overcome, and that as we speak, institutions worldwide are currently coming to grips with the implications of Gen AI and forming policy responses. However, this rich, diverse set of needs that we have make it very difficult for generic guidelines to actually be successful from our perspective. Furthermore, and quite interestingly, the substantial developments in Gen AI far outpace our ability to carry out research and publish it. So perhaps in 1 week in this field, we can see substantial game-changing developments, which highly contrast with, let's say, for instance, the 6 months or a year that it may take to carry out a research study and have that published in a scientific journal. So just in that vein, my colleagues and I do have a forthcoming publication, and one of the recommendations, one of the outcomes from this is that we're actually, in terms of the wider sphere of pedagogy, this is an excellent opportunity for us to go back to the drawing board on many counts. That is, that we can question absolutely everything we've been doing and see how it holds up in terms of the implications of Gen AI and how potentially it may be enhanced. So finally, now we turn to Gen AI and student learning. This was perhaps, should we say, the most revealing for us when it came to the literature review that we carried out. So we've given an example of one study on the slide, but there are a number of others which I strongly invite you to read if you have the opportunity. So this is with regard to student perceptions and student learning. In this particular study, the students highlighted grave concerns when it came to us as educators, tutors, teachers, lecturers, whatever terminology you'd like to use to refer to yourselves in your particular context. And those concerns were with regards to our knowledge, skill set, an ability to fully prepare students effectively for the GenAI dominated world of tomorrow, or should we even perhaps say today. We found this particularly, well, concerning, but also, I suppose, interesting, because given the rapid nature of this singular phenomenon, which we're all currently grappling with, it's extremely interesting to note that we have to catch up. We are also now, we are the students of this, we are, and perhaps even some of our students may be more knowledgeable than us when it comes to the wide range of specific tools which are currently emerging. We also want to highlight something, one of our a further concern, and that's what we've called it, a smoking gun in students' hands. We particularly refer on this point with the announcement, I'm not sure if you've seen it, of Microsoft Copilot. This is, very briefly, the integration of an AI chatbot in Microsoft Word and other programs itself. So we obviously want, as educators, we want to trust our students. We want to create a culture of trust. We want them to be able to use AI, of course. However, it, of course, leads us to the fact that this may, in fact, be, should we say, a temptation for those students who aren't able to meet deadlines, who for a variety of reasons aren't able to meet this, we say, the specific course requirements as we would like. Finally, and just touching on to one of the wider topics, it was interesting to note in the two studies that we've cited here on the slide with regards to student perception of GenAI as an educator within student learning. And that is that they have deemed GenAI as a useful, handy addition or a learning assistant as opposed to educator replacements. So when we see the hyperbolic articles in a variety of media, that sort of a very doomsday tone that forecasts the end of education as we know it, that we're all going to be replaced, this is something that we don't support or attest to. So now we've finished our theoretical overview, and I'm very much pleased to hand over to my colleague, Elena, who will now be talking about more practical implications of this phenomenon. Over to you, Elena. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Sorry I don't have such a nice British accent as my colleague Peter, but well, I will try to speak as clearly as possible. So we're going to show you now some examples of tools that you can use for your classes and that hopefully you will find useful. Let's start with those tools that can be used for materials development. So the first one is QueryPod, which allows to create lesson plans in just seconds. You just have to introduce the topic, the grade, the learning objectives, and the standards, of course, that you want to achieve. And then you wait a little bit and you get the results. While you are waiting to get these results, this lesson plan, it is nice because you get a quote to reflect a little bit about your teaching, just as an anecdote, because well, it is nice to get that while you're waiting. And well, the tool prepares a presentation with interactive questions. Students can log in and answer from their devices like in any other interactive or immediate response system. I don't know if you've used one of these before. And something good about the tool too is that you can use your Google account to log in. So we don't need to waste time while we create a username, password, etc. Okay, our next tool is Copilot. And of course, again, it is an AI-driven platform designed to streamline lesson planning and material creation for educators. So it is what I found from my experience is that this tool takes a little bit more time to come up with the results. But again, it is also nice if you want or if you need a tool for lesson planning to create educational handouts, etc. Let me just say that there was a question in this chat, a very interesting one, saying if artificial intelligence will aid or will replace. And this is an example that it is a way of helping us create our materials, but of course, we will always need to edit them, to adapt them to our specific needs. It won't create the final result as we will use it in our classes. We will need to always adapt all the materials created to our specific needs. But it is a great way, as we will show with the rest of the tools, to help us be more effective in our classes. Our next tool is Roshi, which is an online platform that helps teachers create learning materials based on online content. There's 3 specific features that the tool has: generate a lesson, as you can see on the slide, generate an illustrated story, and create content from scratch. Again, it is very nice because all the elements, all the materials that it creates are interactive. So for example, you can create a story with specific character. You add the instructions as you create the materials. You can change the way they look. You can add questions so that students can answer, vocab prompts. You may add videos, music, and this tool can also be used with a Google account. So now let's move on to tools that can be used for classroom practice. And our first tool is Speaker Coach, which is a Microsoft PowerPoint feature that helps users practice their presentation skills. So, for example, if some of you have used Microsoft Teams in the past for a meeting, this is a feature you can just turn on. And after the meeting, you get a report. I mean, I'm talking about a meeting or a PowerPoint presentation, as we say here on the slide. So you turn on the feature, and once you finish, you get a report with an overview that tells you how you spoke during the meeting or during your presentation, with details about your total speaking time, the use of repetitive language. So it is a great way to make us aware of how we are doing as we speak in public. Great. Our next tool is Conquer, which in this case, this tool creates quizzes, and again, you can use your Google account to log in. So you may just add any topic. For example, since I work a lot with financial translation, I added the topic finance, and I got a very useful quiz with loads of financial questions. And so what I liked about this tool specifically was that you get feedback for all your answers, whether they're negative or positive. So if you get it wrong, you get feedback for that, or if you get it right, you get also feedback for that, which I found that when I was creating my quizzes in the past, it took a lot of time to always write something for every answer. So also something very nice about this tool is that you can validate your answers with a Google search. So it is very practical, because if you want to know a little bit more about that answer, there's a link that brings you to the explanation about it. And of course, you may edit the questions that the tool creates for the quiz, or you may edit the answers. Again, it is a way to help us, not to replace our work. And I see that some people are adding in the chat some similar tools for this purpose. Yes, indeed, there's many. I mean, in the past year, we were talking about it in the chat before, that there's so many tools that have come up, and it is impossible to know all of them. But all these suggestions are of course very much appreciated. And the tools that we have added here in this presentation are the tools that we have used in the past and that we know that work well for our classes. So that's why we're showing them just as examples of good practice. Great. And last, YouTube summary. This is a free Chrome extension, very easy to download. So what it does is that when you are using YouTube, you get this little tool next to the video you're watching, and you can have a transcript of all the video. Even if it's a song, you get a transcript of the song, and then there's a link to ChatGPT, and there you get a summary of it. And very interesting, because I was listening to a Latin song once, and it gave me a whole, well, first I got the transcript, and then ChatGPT gave me the whole summary of the song with all the feelings that the singer was expressing in the song. Very, very good summary, I must say, and I was quite impressed by it. I mean, again, you can use this for many different purposes. Maybe later we can discuss how you can use them in the different classes that you have, and talk a little bit more about it. Okay, Perplexity is an answer engine that focuses on advancing how people discover, how you can deal with different type of information. It is, I mean, if you've used it before, it's kind of like ChatGPT, but it is trained specifically as a chatbot. And our final tool for classroom practice is Hello History. Very interesting app that allows users to have conversation with historical figures. For example, I added here the conversation that I had with Albert Einstein, and very, very interesting, because I mean, not only for history classes, but it can be used for English for specific purposes, or any other English language class, because all the vocab and all the expressions that the tool uses are very useful indeed. And so here you got I'm showing you the example of the conversation, and this is just one of the historical figures that I'm showing, but there's many of them that I invite you to use, because I think you will find them very interesting. And I see that another colleague added a great tool to talk to people. Yes, to people. Thank you for all those suggestions. We will definitely take them into account and use them to see how they work. Okay, now for assessment. Some colleagues were asking about some tools for this. So this is Got Feedback, which is a tool that allows you to upload a text that you're writing. The only thing is that the limit is 1,500 characters, which is not a lot. But I mean, if you want to try it, or at least for some essays, depending on the level you're working with, but for some essays that can be useful, you can upload the file, or you just type in the text that you need to review, and it gives you feedback, the kind of feedback that you need. And our last tool is GPT-0, which is an AI detection tool. And I mean, I'm sure that you know many other types of tools that work well, and like copy leaks, for example. But this is just well, a tool that allows you to choose the type, the time, the type of tool that you want to check, and it offers features such as plagiarism scores. It can highlight portions of documents. I mean, if you used Turnitin in the past, it is kind of like that, a little bit more basic, obviously, but at least it allows us to see if there's some kind of plagiarism to detect from our students' assignments. And these are some examples of tools. I know that you are using some others that are working well for these purposes. And I think it's now time to start practicing a little bit and see what you have to say about it. So let's move on to hands-on activities with my colleague, Alexandra Santamaria.
Thank you, Elena. And thank you, Peter, for such a wonderful introduction to the topic and for all the wonderful tools that Elena has just shown us. We wanted this presentation to include hands-on activities so that you were able to see exactly, giving you certain scenarios, how you could use some of these tools, different tools from the ones that Elena has just presented. We are going to talk about PDF chatbot or chat PDF, Parlay Genie, some prompts that we've designed for ChatGPT, and boom. We don't have a lot of time, so I will try to explain more or less how they work and how they could be useful for you. Just let's begin with Chat PDF. I don't know if you've ever heard about this tool. Probably there are other different tools just like this one. So maybe you could take these type of activities. We liked Chat PDF because it's pretty easy to use, straightforward, free. Well, we've designed these two scenarios. I've designed one exam model and I need 3 more models. Can you help me with that? Or I read a text and I want you to ask me questions about it. Can you help me with that? For sure, Chat PDF can help you with that. And here is how. This is, the first page that you see when you go to chatpdf.com. As you can see, I've got my chats here below. You can draw PDF here, straightforward, easy. If we go to my exam, for instance, this one, I've just uploaded. I've got conjunctions and adverbial clauses. And I asked him if he can design one model or 2 more models. There we go. Here on the left-hand side, it's the PDF I've uploaded. The GenAI reads the text, and I asked him whether he can create other models. So he has designed 2 more models, kind of different. Remember that prompts are very we need to be very specific about what we want. So here I just asked if he could design or if she could design 2 different models. And he just gave me a selection of multiple choice questions and also short answer questions and essay questions based on my PDF. So pretty easy, straightforward. Do we have to revise it? Of course. And another scenario that we present here today is, okay, I've got a story like the black cat, and why don't you give me 5 keywords? Okay, here are the 5 keywords. Can you act as the main character of the story? And I will ask you a couple of questions. Why did you kill your wife? Do you regret it? Where are you now? So here are certain questions that you can ask the text. So it's pretty easy to use. And even the GenAI can ask you questions, and you can reply and see if you've understood the text correctly. So this is 2 scenarios that we are showing you today. Let's move on to other scenarios. Here is Parlay Genie. I would like to prepare some discussion questions. So I want to set up a discussion group. And I want you to ask me follow-up questions or create a follow-up activity after, for instance, we've watched a video. There are other like YouTube, the one that the tool that Elena showed us, yes, with including a YouTube video. Here is Parlay Genie that we've got easy to use, free, unless, or you don't need to log in unless you want to start the discussion using Parlay Genie. If we begin with Parlay Genie, as you can see here on this slide, we can choose between custom topic, URL media. We've chosen URL media. We create 3 questions about what? Here, a source material. I've included a recipe, a YouTube video with a recipe, and I choose the grade level, and I chose higher education. So once we do that, this is what we get. We get that the GenAI has reviewed the content and multimedia and has provided us with discussion questions. What are the benefits of using Dutch processed cocoa powder? 3 different questions that you can regenerate, and also some peer feedback instructions. So pretty easy to use and straightforward. And why not an AI generated discussion prompts? So pretty interesting. Another scenario that we present here is the use of prompts. We can use them with ChatGPT or Perplexity, for instance. We've created 2 prompts, and so that we can see how to use them properly in our classroom. We've got the first prompt. It's this one over here. Act as an ESL teacher, write, depends on the time, the 60-minute session class or 30-minute lessons plan to teach ESL students at, you choose the level of students, about objectives and content, and then we choose the type of approach. Okay, so this is the prompt. You personalize, you put whatever information you wanted to include. This is the one that we present today. Here you could see it, I don't know if you could see it at the, there, act as ESL teacher, write a 60-minute lesson plan to teach ESL students a B2 level about the 3rd conditional in the context of a radio show, and we use a game-based learning approach. So let's just click the magic button. Let's ChatGPT does its magic, and here we've got and includes both the objectives, the level B2, the materials, and the procedure. Yes, the warm-up, 5 minutes, introduction to the 3rd conditional. We can see we write the structure of the 3rd conditional on the board. We provide examples. Do we want ChatGPT to give us examples? So just ask, be more specific about what exactly you wanted to include. We've got the listening activity with the radio show that lasts 15 minutes, the practice activity with hypothetical situations. Remember, this is the 3rd conditional that we are teaching. And it finishes with the game-based approach for the reinforcement part, and the wrap-up and summary. So adapt the timing of activities as necessary, and that's what ChatGPT tells us. So let's move on to another, see if I can, yes, yeah, to another prompt, and it's this one over here. We want ChatGPT to take on the role of an expert academic writing tutor. You should revise my writing, students' writing, and provide me with suggestions for improvement for a 2nd draft. This is pretty nice for students to do. Use the Socratic feedback style. This is what we've chosen. You can change that and adapt it to your needs. I need you to make 6 specific pieces of advice. You could also adapt that, choose the number of specific pieces of advice, and ask him if he or she understands. So here we've got, as you can see, after, let's go backwards a little bit. So after we have included the prompt, ChatGPT says that he actually understands. Please provide me with the text. So we have pasted a text from one of our students, and then ChatGPT acts as an academic writing tutor and gives students 6 suggestions for improving his or her text. It would be helpful to provide specific examples or evidence. Can you think of any specific studies? This would add more credibility to your argument. When discussing your reading practice, try to provide more specific details. Consider explaining the real journey. So emphasize the importance of analyzing the reading questions. And here are the 6 suggestions for improving your text that ChatGPT has given your student, and your student based on this can develop a 2nd draft. Remember that these suggestions are just meant to guide you to strengthen your argument. And well, the last scenario, we don't have much time, so I want my students to use AI collaboratively in a game-based activity. And well, I don't know if you have ever used Boom, but well, it's an AI generated quiz that allows you to also, as you can see on the upper right-hand side, create a room to play with 2 6 friends Here we've got an example, generate a game below. We introduce the topic here. Here we've got Harry Potter. And by generating it, this Boom application provides a prompt for AI to generate a quiz. And once we do that, it generates a 10-question game, as we can see here. What is the name of the first book? And we've got a game that we can play collaboratively. And well, these are just some of our ideas, scenarios. So we don't have a lot of time to present all of them. But over to Peter, that it's going to give you a couple of questions so that we can get the conversation going.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. So first of all, as well, thank you to all. I've just been busy rapidly trying to answer all of your questions in the chat. They're absolutely fantastic. So please keep them coming in. They're absolutely fantastic, and we'll try our best to answer all of them. So when it comes to this, I don't know if you just want to share your answers in the chat, as Alexandra's just said, but how can we avoid, oops, I think, can we go back to question 1, Alessandra, sorry? Are we fighting a losing battle when it comes to AI? Are we going to be replaced? Many of the questions that we've asked today have been about this. So if very briefly, it's not obligatory for you to do this. You can share your answer in the chat if you prefer, but if you've got your mobile to hand, scan the QR code, and we'll just give you a minute to do that, and then we'll address just to share our findings there. Or if you can't scan the QR code, you can go to wooclap.com and then enter the event code RSNDID, okay? If you can't do this, don't worry, it's not obligatory, or you can just share your answer in the chat, that'd be fantastic. So I'll just give you another little minute to do this, and then we'll have a quick look at the questions. Great, some of you have done this already, fantastic. So the question 1 is, are we fighting a losing battle in teacher education when it comes to GenAI, or have things actually been blown out of proportion? Great, I can see some of your answers coming in the chat as well. That's fantastic. Thanks, Gopika. Thanks, Shanti, Galina, Faridun, Amin. That's brilliant. Great. So majority no, and that's a fantastic response. I know perhaps we've not convinced 16 of you yet, but we do encourage you to explore these tools and actually analyze them and think, how can we turn this around? One of the questions I've just answered in the question and answer section was with regard to the use of sources, that when GenAI hallucinates ChatGPT, for example, what can I do? And the recommendation we gave there was, well, for students to take on this role, and that way we can define a new role for both teachers and students as the filter in this regard. So we're now going to move on to the next question, which hopefully we'll be able to answer very briefly. So this is a sort of an idea sharing exercise very briefly. How can we ensure that teachers are prepared to deal with student use and misuse of AI tools? So just give you 1 minute briefly to answer that. And I think, Alice, I know that's probably all we've got time for this. Great, I can see that your messages are flirting in the chat as well. That's fantastic. If you've not been able to log on, don't worry, that's absolutely fine. If you've got something that you'd like to share with us, we'll share our email addresses just at the end, and you can pop us over a message. We'll be absolutely delighted to hear from you. Great. So some messages from the chat, in addition to what we can see on the screen. Teach them to use it best, exactly, use it best in students. The use of AI tools for plagiarism checkers, lots of self-learning. They have to learn how to use it themselves, upgrade ourselves. Great answer. With training in the same vein, teach and update ourselves. Absolutely, you're in a group. I think the next way to handle this is to be as part of them as far as age. Absolutely. We've got to keep ourselves up to date. I couldn't agree with you any more. So I'm just quite aware of the time, and as delighted as we are to have heard your responses, we'll just briefly sum up in our conclusions. And as I said before, we'll share our email addresses with you if any of you do have any comments, feedback, anything that you're dying to share with us that we haven't before. So just in terms of the conclusions, we are at a juncture, an unprecedented juncture within teacher education and the wider sphere of education itself. To that end, we also need to identify the ways in which AI can enhance the teacher-educator experience, whilst also redefining, as I said, our role as teacher educators. However, we do face a specific challenge, that is that we're preparing our pre-service teachers for a world of AI that, frankly, from our perspective, we can't even begin to imagine. Those tools don't exist yet, but they will. So therefore, for us, it's of vital importance that we continue on our mission to want the best for our pre-service teachers, and also to sow the seeds of, investigative interest, curiosity for future teacher educators and future teachers to look upon themselves, look at these issues all by themselves and research and try out and see what works in practice. We thank you ever so much for being so hospitable and accommodating this morning on behalf of my colleagues and I. Alex, back to you.